that are new and have not been here before, IWP is the graduate school of national security, intelligence, and international affairs. We offer a doctoral program, 7 master degree programs, 7 separate master degree programs, including 2 online master programs, and 18 certificates of graduate study. So if you're interested in learning more about that, just speak to one of the people walking around with the little gold badges. Or you can visit the website, www.iwp.edu. And we'd like to thank all of the supporters who make our IWP events program possible. And to support the work of IWP, please visit the website, which is iwp.edu/donate. Today's lecture is part of a cyber intelligence lecture series, and we'll be hearing from Robin Pugh in a lecture titled Pig Butchering and National Security. So Robin Pugh is the president of DarkTower, a bespoke threat intelligence firm that leverages university partnerships and research to provide managed threat intelligence services to a lot of verticals in industry. The leaders in banking, insurance, law enforcement, and e-commerce. DarkTower focuses on disrupting internet-enabled crime and training the next generation of cybercrime fighters. So it's a noble cause. In 2023, Robin brought together a team of cybercrime fighters and launched Intelligence for Good, another organization, which is a nonprofit organization whose mission is to address the explosion of internet-enabled crimes against individuals, including crypto investment scams, romance scams, got to pause there, sextortion, and other crimes with no natural predator. Robin received her degree in business administration from Montreat College and resides in Charlotte, North Carolina area with her husband and 3 children. So please help me in welcoming Robin Pugh.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. I am really looking forward to sharing what I know about this topic. I'm very passionate about it. And based on your presence here, you're either really passionate about it or really curious about it. And I would love to know, before tonight, how many of you are familiar with the term pig butchering? Okay, a higher percentage than usual. So that's good. You know what it's about. And I have been sharing with some of my friends in this space. We tend to get numb to some of these slang terms for cybercrimes. And I was talking with one of my friends who is an accomplished professional, very sophisticated person. And I said, I'm going to be in DC presenting on pig butchering. And she was like, what? So I realized not everyone knows what that means. And it's a term that has some controversy around it, but I think it's an important term because I think what it does, it's the term that criminals use for their targets. And what it does is underline in our minds how they think about us. So it is a derogatory term, clearly, but that's how they think about us. And I think we have to remember that as we're talking about what do we do to address this fight. As Dean mentioned, the company that I run on the for-profit side is called DarkTower. So we do a lot of work in the commercial space, and we help gather information off of open sources like social media and messaging applications where criminals are talking very freely about how to commit crimes against either brands or the customers of those brands. And so those brands will hire us to say, hey, we need to know more about how we're being targeted to make sure that we don't have any vulnerabilities. So we gather that information, do the analysis for them, monitor the places where they're being talked about and targeted. And in a very similar way, on the Intelligence for Good side, we're gathering those conversations, doing the analysis. But what we realized and why we started Intelligence for Good is because these crimes in particular are not targeting a brand. They're not targeting a company or a bank or Amazon or Bank of America, they're targeting all of us, each of us as individuals, our children, our elderly parents. They're targeting us, and there's really no one there to defend us. So that's why we've kind of dubbed them crimes with no natural predator. There's no one law enforcement agency, there's no one commercial brand who's like, oh, we're impacted by this, so we're willing to fund the fight against it. It's such a dispersed buckshot kind of strategy that it really doesn't have a particular focus from any one entity. So we wanted to play our part in this. We're already in these places gathering information for our clients, so it seemed logical, seemed like the right thing to do, that we should use our platform, our analysis capabilities to be able to gather that information on the nonprofit side of things. And that's what we do at Intelligence for Good. Like Dean mentioned, we were only founded last year, so we are a very, very baby nonprofit, still kind of creating the infrastructure to do bigger and better things, but that's the background. So the thing that we always have to start with when we're talking about this problem of crypto investment scams and pig butchering is understanding what the scope is. And like most things out there, there's all kinds of arguments about what the real numbers are. What is the real loss that individuals are seeing? So a very, very conservative estimate is in the IC3, the FBI's Internet Crimes Complaint Center. They put a report out every year that talks about the types of crimes that have been reported to them. And as you can see in this year's report, which reflects 2023 data, investment scams were the top dollar amount lost. So $4.5 billion lost in investment scams. And that number has dramatically increased year over year. As a matter of fact, investment scams prior were in the top 5, but they haven't always been the top category. So we're seeing a real explosion of crypto investment scams. And we'll talk about some of the reasons behind that. But as you can imagine, the pandemic, of course, plays a role in that. We could blame so many things on the pandemic. Here's another study that I really enjoyed reading. And to me, it offers a much more realistic perspective on what the actual losses are. This is a study by some gentlemen out of the University of Texas at Austin. And how they did this research was really fascinating. They started with about 600 victims of investment scams. And they took the information from those victims that included the crypto wallet addresses to where they were instructed to send money or where their funds ended up. And by analyzing those wallets, these researchers were able to associate more addresses, so 3,200 Ethereum addresses, 770 Bitcoin addresses, 702 Tron addresses, and all in all, they were able to trace $75 billion flowing into these wallets that were owned by the criminals. So taking 600 victims and doing an analysis turned into $75 billion. And I feel like that is a much more representative amount of what we're experiencing worldwide. They had some other interesting learnings about really how sophisticated these scammers are. I think a lot of times when we call them scammers, we're doing ourselves a disservice because that's kind of a derogatory term. You don't really take a scammer seriously. It seems like somebody you just bat away with the back of your hand. But a lot, and some of them are in that category, but the ones who are doing the most damage and the ones who are gaining momentum, they're very sophisticated and very intelligent, and they know how to operate all the various types of blockchains. They can switch from one to the other. They have multiple currency types. They're swapping back and forth, and all of that is designed to make it impossible for law enforcement or for any investigative entity to identify, freeze, and recover those funds. They do this as quickly as possible so that your money is out of the reach of law enforcement. It's all very intentional. Let's see, as I was talking, I was going to say one more thing about this page. And I've lost that thought. It'll come back. All right, so back to pig butchering and the definition. So most of you in here knew what pig butchering was. You know that it comes from a term in Chinese, 杀猪盘, which is literally killing pig game. And that's what this is to them, is a game. They do not care one bit that there's a human being at the other end who has their life savings at stake. They don't care that sometimes the victims of these crimes do end up ending their lives because of the devastation that these crimes have caused to them. But it's, if you have any farmers in your family, you understand that farmers don't necessarily want to take a skinny animal to the slaughter. That's what this pig butchering game is all about. It's fattening the pig before the slaughter. And we're the pigs, they're referring to us as the pigs, and they want to do everything they can to build that trust, build that relationship with us so we'll invest more and more and more, making that pig fatter and fatter until finally they're ready to pull the curtain. Strictly speaking, not all crypto investment scams are pig butchering, so we'll talk a little bit about the distinction in those. It's not super black and white. There's obviously always some gray area, but there are some unique characteristics of pig butchering as it relates to crypto scams in general. Some of the research that we've done in this space, it's kind of mind-blowing how it's like fish in a barrel, really. One afternoon, some of the analysts on our team decided to see how many crypto investment websites they could find, crypto investment scam websites, I should say. So in just a few hours, they went through, and this is all clear web. This is not dark web stuff. And I think a lot of times we think that the really bad stuff on the internet is on the dark web, and I'm here to tell you that that is not the case in 2024. Everything that used to be confined to the dark web is now available on the clear web, and your kids probably know how to find it too, so be aware of that. So these sites were mostly advertised in social media. So I'm going to just page through a couple pages of screenshots just so you can see what the volume looks like. So this is just all on the same day in just a couple of hours, and it's not all of them. It's just, that is my way to show you how many are out there. Are all of those sites successful? Are they all getting customers and investors? Probably not. Probably some of them have very little activity, but some of them have tremendous amounts of activity. So what's a good way to be able to tell if an investment site is legitimate or if it's a scam site? Well, there are a couple really easy ways. The first one is probably look at the rate of return that they're promising. Is it logical and reasonable that anyone is making returns like this? This site, they're trying to give you the tiered level, and if you're not sure about this and you're only going to deposit $30, you can expect a 10% return. But then it keeps going up, and as you get more confident in your investment skills, if you're going to deposit big bucks there at the end, you're going to get 154% return on investment. So, and by the way, the 10% is 10% within 24 hours. So let's think about that. Over the course of a month, does that make sense that you would get that kind of a return? Of course not. So that's the first thing, the first logic check you have to employ. Here's another one. So this one is saying after 2 days, you're going to get 20%. Again, let's do the math. What's that return going to be on a 30-day? 25% after 3 days, 30% after 4 days. So your rate of return just goes up and up and up, and it was already ridiculous to start with. So again, we got a red flag there. Another thing about this site that is a good indicator to us. So it says here, multiply your Bitcoins in no time, and I think it says tredeemxtrades.pro. That's the name of the company. Well, let's look at the top of the website. They forgot to change on their template, and it just says site logo. So they were supposed to put the name of their company there. So not all criminals are smart criminals. Some of them may know how to swap blockchains, but they forget to update the WordPress website here. But little details like that can tell you quickly if you are on a scam site or not. One thing that you do need to know in case you're looking for another job, if you would like to host your own crypto scam sites, here's how easy it is. All you have to do is go on Google. You can Google High Yield Investment Program or HYIP. And if you look up what is HYIP, the actual dictionary definition of it is it's an investment scam. It's like a Ponzi scheme or a pyramid scam, something like that. But there are companies out here offering templates where you can build a website in probably an hour or two that looks pretty convincing, pretty professional. And some of them offer almost like investment scams as a service. They have the full-blown back end on these templates where you can have them set up for credit card payment processing. They will do bank wires for you. They have chat bots. So if you need to look like you have a customer support center, you can add that onto your website and they'll host that for you. So it can make you look like a totally professional, legit business. Here's some more of these templates that are for sale. And as you can see, all of those are available between $30 and $40. Pretty low barrier to entry if you'd like to start your own crypto investment scam. Here are some examples where we can kind of start to see a little bit of distinction between crypto scams and pig butchering. So one of the primary hallmarks of a pig butchering scam is they are typically Southeast Asia generated, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. And they are in it for the long haul. Again, fattening the pig for slaughter. They may take months, they may take years to really build that trust. There's a lot of research that's been done by psychologists about trust signals. And these criminals are well versed in trust signals. One of the trust signals that we all respond to is an authority figure. So you'll see in this group here on the left, it's a WhatsApp group that if you have WhatsApp on your phone, you've probably been forced joined to some of these groups. So you wake up one morning and all of a sudden you open WhatsApp and you're in a new group that you've never heard of before, and there's probably a lot of people in the group, and there's usually always going to be a professor or some sort of billionaire figure. And when they use a billionaire figure, it's usually a real person's name. They will have stolen that person's photos so that you think it is actually, in this case, I can't read the tiny print on my screen. But anyway, this gentleman over here is legitimately someone who runs an investment firm, and he is a billionaire according to Forbes. So he's a real person, but he's not actually in this WhatsApp group telling you how to make money for free just out of the goodness of his heart. That is a lie. But these WhatsApp groups, they play on that trust signal of, here's a professor, here's a well-known name that you might know of, or Google them. See, we told you he's a legitimate billionaire and he's gonna help you become rich too. So the idea is there's an assistant in all of these, it could be Mary, it's usually a female, but the assistant kind of manages the group, adds people to it, and kind of promotes what they're doing. And she'll say something, that sounds lovely, like, we want everyone to be able to experience a lifestyle of peace and prosperity. Professor so-and-so is here to teach you about the basics of trading in gold and cryptocurrency, and just really talks about it in a way that you want to be part of that club too, right? So we've got the assistant, we've got the investment genius, and typically they'll say, if you want to learn more about how to trade and make the kind of returns we're all making, they'll direct you to an app, or maybe they'll direct you to a private Telegram channel. So there'll be some sort of link that you'll have to follow, and they'll help you with logging in, and they'll even help you with wiring the money from your account so you can purchase the crypto. They're so helpful. But some really interesting things, so a lot of times in these WhatsApp groups, there will be, most of them you can see everyone's phone number, and you'll think, okay, a lot of these phone numbers are from the US, so maybe it's legit. Maybe this is really an actual investment group. I don't know how I got so lucky to be included, but I'm gonna watch and see what happens. So you'll see people who will post in there and say, oh, thanks to Professor Bob, I made a 22% return on my investment yesterday. And then somebody else say, yes, I had the same thing with Professor Bob. He helped me invest in gold for the first time. So there are testimonials coming in. And so people start to, have their defenses taken down. They're like, okay, these are people with American phone numbers. They're saying they actually made money. Maybe there's something real going on here. So a lot of times when they're directing you to their app, sometimes it is a real app. You will start with a legitimate crypto exchange app or something like that, like a Coinbase or whatever, that is fine to download, fine to have an account on. And then at some point, they'll compromise your credentials. Other times, there will be an app that a lot of times they'll say, oh, download our app. And you'll go try to find it in the Google Play Store or the Apple Store, and it's not there, or something's not working. So you go back to them and say, I tried to download it, but it didn't work. Well, guess what? That wasn't a mistake. They know it's not going to work because a lot of times they're definitely in Apple. It's very difficult for them to get their app hosted through the Apple's App Store, but Google Play will sometimes let some through. But more often than not, they just wanted you to go through that. So you, again, building that trust signal so you felt like it was legitimate. And then they'll say, oh, well, here, just use this link that I sent you. So now you've installed their app. They could have some malware on it to get your credentials, but at best, it's just a scam app that's going to show you fake returns on fake dollars because they've already taken your money. Let's see, I think we covered all of that. So again, crypto scam versus pig butchering. A lot of times these forced join WhatsApp groups will be more crypto scam related. So a lot of them will come from West Africa, a lot of Nigerian organized crime, because they're just going to see, you know, we're going to put 50 people in this group, see how many we can get, move on to the next group. Sometimes these will be more pig butchering based. They'll have, again, a bigger investment in building trust with you, but it's just a nuance between how they work with the emotions of the victim and how much time they're willing to invest, and often how much money they're targeting getting from you. Sometimes the crypto scam groups that are more African-centered or Eastern European, they're happy with a few $100s from their victims. They'll take that, they'll move on. But the pig butchering organizations, they are focused on getting every last penny from you. These are my favorite little screenshots. These are also from my phone, my real phone, and you probably have gotten some of these too, but a lot of times the pig butchering approach starts with the wrong number text. So you get a text that says, hi John, it was so great to see you the other day. And you're like, oh, well, I'm not John, I should let them know. Do not let them know. They know you're not John. It's not really a wrong number, but that's just to start the conversation. You know, if you say, oh no, this is Robin, I think you must have the wrong number. They'll be like, oh, I'm so sorry. And then maybe a few hours pass, maybe a couple days pass, and you'll get another message from them. And they'll say something friendly to try to draw you into a conversation. And that's really how it starts, is just from a basic accidental wrong number. Now you start talking, now you're willing to become friends with somebody you've never met. They'll usually have an interesting lifestyle or live in an interesting place, and they seem harmless and friendly, and maybe you're lonely. I mean, you want to talk about what the pandemic contributed to this? That is one of the major things. When people are confined without social interaction, all of a sudden you start interacting with your in real life friends on social media and only through electronic means. So doesn't it seem more normal that you're making new friends through only electronic means? Your whole world becomes electronic. So we let our defenses down, and again, it just helps them build those trust signals with us. So I have a cute girl who wants to talk to me. And then on the other one, this one is really my favorite because this dude knows how to talk to a lady. He talks about my smile and my sparkling eyes and how beautiful my profile picture is. I mean, I almost want to send him some money. But anyway, that's a Telegram message. The one with the picture is just a plain old SMS text message. But again, they can be very patient, very willing to just be friendly. And you know what? A lot of times victims will tell us, I had conversations with this person for months before money was ever mentioned. And initially, it wasn't even that they wanted me to invest in anything. They were just telling me how successful they'd been. And we had victims say, when I told them, hey, I want to try that too, they were like, no. I've made a decision. I'm never letting any of my friends try this, because if you weren't as successful as I was, I would feel so bad. So they'll even turn you down. Again, building that trust, building that interest. You feel more like, okay, now I'm really into it. It's got to be legit. You know, if they don't want to share with me, it's got to be for real. Even when you are warned, this is the hard thing. And so many times, to the point that this is a complex problem. There's so many entities that have responsibility in the solution. And even when banks, for example, try to implement controls, like a lot of the reputable crypto exchanges will flag wallets that have been associated with criminal activity. We do a lot of work with Chainalysis, and whenever we identify a crypto wallet that's used for any type of criminal activity, we have the ability to give them a report and they will flag it in the system. So that way, if anybody's sending something to that address, it gets flagged and blocked. A lot of banks have alerts in their systems where if you're trying to wire money that's out of your usual spending behavior, they will throw up an alert. But the criminals know this, and they will educate you up front to say, hey, your bank's probably going to question you because you've never invested with me before. They might have some questions. They just want to control all your money. That's the problem. They just don't want you to invest somewhere else. So here's what you say to them. And they will equip the victim with the script to share with the teller at the branch when they go to withdraw money or make a wire. Or if you have a Robinhood account and the screen pops up that says, this appears to be a behavior associated with a scam. Are you sure you want to proceed? They just click right through because they've been groomed and because they've been educated to expect it. But it's fine. They're standing in the way of you making lots of money and having the best life. So this is my colleague, Gary Warner, who is one of the smartest people in the whole world. He is an amazing cybercrime researcher. And so sometimes on his LinkedIn page, he will get excited about one of his current projects and he'll share a public service announcement, if you will. So this particular day, this was just 3 months ago, he had found this crypto scam called XMedCoin, and it was one of those that had an actual real person that had their identity was being emulated in this WhatsApp group, an investor, Dan Moorhead. So the group was saying, Dan Moorhead, you can look him up. He's been so successful and he has been so generous to give us investment tips here in this group. So if you want to invest with Dan, use our platform, xmedcoin.com. So Gary posts this as a warning. And lo and behold, some people who had invested with this platform responded to him in the open on LinkedIn. So it was a very interesting discussion. One of them was this woman, Stephanie, who is a teacher. And Stephanie says, I'm literally in this group. The assistant, remember I told you they always have an assistant? Diana is the assistant, just like you said, but we all speak to each other. Are you saying that the daily free trades and long-term trades are all a scam? And Gary kindly and gently says, 100% guarantee it's a scam. So Stephanie says, no, it's real. I have the app. I have personal experience with it. But you are making me a little worried here because I'm getting ready to put in a lot more money than I put in before, basically. So Gary goes through and points out some of the red flags that we've talked about. Dan Moorhead, he's the CEO of Pantera Capital. Does it make sense that he would be in a WhatsApp group giving you trading tips for free? No. He's not the founder of the group. Diana does not exist. Diana is definitely not Dan's assistant. And why is it that Dan and his assistant Diana are having to have their posts translated from Chinese by deepl.com? So with a little technical expertise, he was able to see that these were all translated from Chinese into English. So Stephanie still has questions. She doesn't want to believe it. And the reason she doesn't want to believe it is because she had been able to withdraw money. Again, building trust signals. They will often let you withdraw money the first few times. Stephanie had withdrawn $1,000. So she had made a first deposit. I don't know what that deposit was, but theoretically it was less than $1,000. She made a return on that. She could take out $1,000. Now she's really excited. This is real. So she makes another investment. She makes a return on that, and they let her withdraw $3,500. So 2 successful withdrawals, a great rate of return, a lot of us would be convinced, right? So the end of the story, sadly, is she took out money from her teacher's retirement account and she lost $50,000. And at that point, the app doesn't work, whatever the close of the scam is, whatever the butchering situation is, it's done. Like, she can't get any more money out. A lot of times they will ask you to pay a tax, or they'll say, oh, we're wiring your money, it's coming from all these different countries, but there's a tax to get it back into the US, and you have to pay this processing fee or another tax. And by that time, the person's out of money. I've talked to victims who not only have drained their IRAs and their 401ks, they have mortgaged their homes, they have sold valuables, they truly have absolutely nothing left to give. And the criminals are relentless in saying, you can have your money, you just have to pay this one more fee, just one more fee. And after you pay that fee, of course, there will be another fee. There's 2 other victims who posted they had losses as well. Braden lost $5,000 and Fahad had lost $70,000. But again, that long grooming, that patient development of trust is what really got Stephanie. And by tracing the XMed wallets, Gary was able to identify that particular scam alone had taken over $6.5 million in a little bit less than a year. So that's the kind of correlation you can do with some crypto and blockchain analysis skills to understand that, we've got 3 victims. Between the 3 of them, they had lost, $125,000. But in reality, the total loss for that scam that we know of is $6.5 million. So I mentioned a few moments ago, Southeast Asia is really the ground zero for pig butchering scams in the true sense of that term. And there have been some great white papers published by some really reputable groups like United Nations Office of Drugs and Crime. I'll also refer to some research through the Institute of Peace, and they have some really not only well-researched papers, but they're very interesting to read. I have a hard time reading, these raw data reports that are snoozers, but they put enough pictures in it to keep me interested. So you have a statement here just talking about how these organized crime groups are developing such amazing skills and technology and in understanding the sociology of the problems, and they're leveraging everything around them. They're creating an ecosystem that's making it the perfect environment for them to create these criminal compounds. These are multi-story, like Class A office space buildings where these criminal scams are being run out of. And they have successfully commandeered all of these resources, and they really are to the point where they are outpacing the abilities of law enforcement around the world to do anything about it, which is really scary. Take a look at some of the financials that the Institute of Peace put together. So if you look at some of these countries and you compare the dollars they're taking in from crypto scams compared to their GDP, it is a crazy amount of GDP, a percentage of GDP. For example, Laos has a GDP of $14 billion, and they have estimated, I think that says 10 over there. Yeah, 10.9 billion. So 10.9 billion compared to a total GDP of 14 billion. Why would Laos want to get rid of those revenue streams in their country? Where's the incentive for them to push that crime out? It's a huge amount of money coming in. And the reasons, I think you can probably all assume many of the reasons why this area of the world is the prime launching point for a lot of these scams. But obviously, it is an area that has been plagued for decades by political unrest, governments being overthrown, military rule, a lot of presence of organized crime, absolutely devastated economies with terribly high unemployment, individuals who are desperate to feed their families and to make enough dollars to have normal living standards by their terms, much less below our normal terms, right? So it really is the perfect scenario for these places to thrive. There is a big human trafficking component to this, and we'll talk about We'll talk about the folks who are working in these crypto scam compounds in more detail, but the UN has estimated over 120,000 victims in Myanmar, Cambodia, Thailand, the Philippines. Philippines has really started to see a big impact, and fortunately, that's making them, the Philippine government, start to take these crimes more seriously, and we're seeing a lot of raids happening, which is great. It's taking notice, which is good. But as I mentioned, these are financially devastated areas where there's not a lot of opportunity. So it's easy to see how, if you're in that scenario, you would be lured in very easily to a job that seems like, you're going to learn computer skills, you're going to have wages that are much higher than average. Of course, you're going to try and see what it's all about. But a lot of times, once they apply to these jobs, they find out that, they take their passport. They are now at the mercy of their boss, who is part of an organized crime group. They truly give them quotas. They have to hit certain quotas in terms of dollars from victims each day. If they don't hit those quotas, they are subject to all sorts of abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse. There have been reports of murders. There have been plenty of reports of suicides because the individuals who are now kidnapped, in essence, they don't see a way out, and they can't hold up under the pressure of the abuse and the expectations, and they don't want to be part of that anymore. The only way they can see out is to take their life. There have been some really great documentaries produced. The BBC has done some series, and also Al Jazeera has done some series that really show what is it like to live in one of these scam compounds. They kind of go behind the scenes, give you a lot of great information about how these have developed over time, and really in a very short period of time. Most of these have developed since COVID. And again, COVID created, a lot of these are casinos. These buildings were formerly casinos that were shut down during COVID, and they've been repurposed. Same organized crime groups running them, but now they've decided crypto scams from Westerners are way more lucrative than casinos, and you run the risk of the police shutting you down. The police don't care if you're taking money from Westerners, so why not? But you can just go out on Google or go on YouTube and just search for pig butchering or crypto scam compounds, and you'll see some of these videos. I would definitely encourage you to check them out. Great information. So let's go back to that topic of how you get a job in a crypto scam compound. This is a crypto scam site that is hiring. So it's Trionics Multitech, and they do a great job of telling you how wonderful of a company they are. They're growing. They've been around since 2015. Their main branch is in Thailand in the Mae Sot region, but they just opened a Dubai location. I mean, I would like to have a Dubai location. I would love to expand into Dubai. Vietnam, so they have multiple locations. They talk about how they're going to provide you not only with a great job where you're going to earn enough money for your family to live, but they're going to provide you with room and board. 4 meals a day, a place to stay. It all sounds really good. What kind of positions are they looking for? Normal things: finance, salespeople, a promotion specialist who speaks English, customer service specialist. All of those look normal. Crypto, a model. A model is a little weird, right? What would we think they could use a model for? Maybe some pictures of pretty people to send in those wrong number texts? What if they actually had to do a live video conversation with somebody to convince them to invest more money? Marketing specialist, but again, other than model, I would say it's all pretty legit sounding. Next, they tell us how, if we are hired, how we're going to get to them. They're going to fly us into the Bangkok airport. From there, we're going to go to a hotel that they've paid for. And then the next day, after you've rested and freshened up, they're going to take you to Mae Sot. And from there, they're going to take you to the tech park. Well, Mae Sot is 10 minutes from the border with Myanmar. So you think you're getting a job in Thailand, but very soon you find out you're actually going to be working in Myanmar, and it's important to know that that area of Myanmar is one of those border regions where there's no law and order. It is pretty much a Wild West situation there. So once you're there, your passport is taken, all your communication to your family and friends is gone, and you are at their mercy. As we have learned more and more about the structure of the pig butchering organizations, we one day were looking at Telegram channels that are associated, and we noticed there is a prevalence of channels where the Chinese characters for dog's leg, and they call it a dog pusher, but those words are in the titles of all these Telegram channels. So we're like, what does this mean? We've not heard of this before. Well, come to find out, a dog pusher is like the lowest level member of these crypto scam organizations. And they do all the menial labor. Like, they put together lists of targets. They will go out on social media, on LinkedIn. They will look at Rob and Pugh to see, do I look like someone who has enough money to make it worth their while to go after me? So it's not always just, let's look through the phone book and pick a number. There is some research that goes into some of these more complex and more sophisticated scams because they don't want to waste their time. If they're willing to invest months of time building those trust signals with you, they want to make sure that you have enough money and means to make it worth it. So that's something that a dog pusher would probably do. What these Telegram channels were offering, and again, Telegram is just a messaging platform that anyone can access. So we noticed what they were offering was a library of photographs. And what they're doing by sharing these photographs is they're allowing other criminals to purchase these because they're saying that none of these images can be reverse image searched. So if you know anything about online investigations, one of the easiest ways you can tell if something is not authentic, you can take an image and put it in a reverse image search tool, and it will show you all the other places on the internet where that same image shows up. Well, they're saying that none of these images would show up if you put it through a reverse image search tool. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's how they're positioning it. So you'll notice this is very typical. In the build-up for scams, the victim will receive, again, this person has become your friend. They've invested time with you. Every morning you're getting up and you have a text message or a WhatsApp from this person, and they're going to say, "Good morning, sweetheart. I hope you slept well. Here, I had this most lovely breakfast this morning." Send you a picture of their breakfast. "I wish I were sharing it with you." So that happens throughout the day. Pictures of where they are, pictures of them, in their work environment. Rarely ever including a face. So you'll notice most of these, I must have taken it out. Most of these have no face involved, just a body, but no face. And not necessarily sexually explicit either, just, enough to imply it's a real person. So that's what dog pushers do. So let's briefly talk about some of the national security implications. We've already talked about the fact that just by being in this neighborhood, there's a lot of tumultuous political strife, and they're neighbors with China. So let's put that out there. And China definitely leverages this in many different ways. It's been very interesting to see how China has reacted. Initially by ignoring it. China, you're not allowed to have gambling enterprises in China, so that's why a lot of these Chinese organized criminals have established their casinos on the border areas. They're just far enough out of reach, but not too far from home. And China would ignore that because technically they're out of the country, or on the other hand, sometimes they would get kickbacks in order to ignore that. We saw an uptick in China taking notice and starting to do some raids several months ago, but that was because the scam compounds has started targeting Chinese citizens. And once you start victimizing Chinese citizens, China's going to pay attention to that. So we saw some raids happen, and you have hope at first, but then you realize it's just because they're targeting Chinese citizens. They have use the existence of these organizations to justify putting their infamous police stations around the world. And we've seen that happen not just in relation to crypto scam compounds, but we've seen the presence of Chinese police stations in the US. But this is another thing, another method that they use of exerting influence. We mentioned looking the other way, so we'll live and let live, but you're going to give us some money, some bribes, or build rapport, so that in the next time there's an upheaval in your military government, or the next time there's an upheaval from a political perspective, or if we need some favors for our Belt and Road Initiative, we've got some friends who are going to side with us. So there's a lot of opaque influence that can be gleaned through how they're interacting with these organizations. Here's a specific example, and some of you may have seen this story. This was a Reuters story about a year ago, exactly. So there's two gentlemen who are very closely intertwined. They didn't really do a great job of hiding their relationship. This first one is Wang Yicheng, who, this is in Bangkok, Thailand. He had established the Thai Asia Economic Trade Association. He is Chinese by birth, and this was an organization that was designed to facilitate good trade relationships between business people in Thailand and China. So he had established this. Sounds great, right? They did have some interesting, he clearly was a VIP because the trade association had a lot of Thai law enforcement on their board. They also had some Chinese dignitaries on their board, and the website publicly touted over 100 events where either Chinese VIPs, politicians, members of the CCP had been at his trade association for events. So they were mingling, interacting with the local Thailand law enforcement, politicians, business people. Interestingly, if you trace his crypto wallets, he had a healthy crypto stash, $90 million, that was gathered in a little, like a year and a half, but at least 9 million of that 90 came from other wallets that had been associated with crypto scams. So he's receiving funds generated from those criminal activities. So here's the other part of the friendship. This is a well-known organized criminal, Wan Kwok Koi, who leads the 14K triad. Major media outlets, as you can see there, have titled him a transnational criminal organization aligned with the Chinese Communist Party. So his criminal organization is the 14K triad. His front business is this cultural program called the Overseas Hongmen Association. And wouldn't you know, the Overseas Hongmen Association just happened to share office space with the Thai Economic Trade Program. So isn't that cozy? I love that. In 2023, the Thai police raided his office that was shared because of connections to organized crime. He's been sanctioned multiple times. His organization has been sanctioned by OFAC multiple times. And 1 month after the raid, the whole Overseas Hongmen Exchange Center is dissolved. When Reuters reached out to the Thai Asia Trade Center to say, why do you have someone associated with organized crime, leading your organization? Why is he your VP? They said, oh, he's been gone for 3 months. So definitely trying to distance themselves, because apparently the trade association still exists, but he is nowhere to be found. So that's just one example of, you've got Wan Kwok Koi, clearly part of organized crime, clearly affiliated, openly affiliated with CCP. And now we've got his friend who's making inroads with the government of Thailand and receiving funds from crypto scams in his own personal wallet. Not very subtle. Here's some data from one of the Institute of Peace reports that I was talking about, where you can see how this front organization, this cultural organization, the Overseas Hongmen, how it has a presence across the world. Some of it is overt, obviously, but I'm not real excited about that green shading for the United States, where we have a lot of covert presence of the Hongmen Association. that is primarily the gist of the conversation tonight. This is a huge national security threat. We've got to take it as such, not only just because of the political unrest that's coming from an area that's so important to U.S. strategic interests, but think about the massive transfer of wealth from Americans that is going to support individuals who don't align with our values as a country, with our strategy for going forward. So it's a problem that we all have to put our heads together to try to solve. There's not one easy solution. It's not a matter of getting rid of Facebook or getting rid of all dating apps, but we all have to do better. And certainly there's responsibility on the part of social media platforms. There's responsibility on the part of hosting providers when you're alerted of crypto scam sites to take them down. Will they put up new ones? Probably. But we need to make it as difficult as possible. There's just a lot of things that we can do. And what I would encourage each of you to do, because I'm big about what can I do? You know, I'm not a cryptocurrency analyst. I'm not a particularly skilled cybercrime analyst, but I can talk. I talk a lot, just ask my family. So when I sit down at Thanksgiving dinner, I'm going to make sure everybody in my family understands what's going on when you get that wrong number text, and what happens when, you know, you have a friend who says they've made a lot of money online. What should you tell them, and is that real? Let's all take the responsibility that we can to at least talk about the problem, to educate them. You'll be surprised how many people have no idea what's going on, literally no idea. It's not because they're not smart people. They're just not aware. Maybe they work in a field that doesn't ever touch this type of information. So consider yourself tasked with the accountability for making sure that you educate your friends and family. I'll be happy to take any questions or comments. Yes, ma'am. It's you. Oh. Hi.
Thank you for the talk.
Yes.
My question is, there are some governments investing in crypto or using crypto as a tenor. I was just interested in your thoughts on that, namely Bhutan and also El Salvador in particular, and also because you're working with the Chinese and there are a lot of crypto scams within that region. I know that China's influence, particularly in Latin America, as well as increasing. So I was just wondering your thoughts on that, and kind of does that put these countries at a higher vulnerability because they are investing in promoting the cryptocurrency?
That's a great question, and you know, your perspective on that, I'm sure, is probably even more valuable than mine. I don't know. It would seem logically that there could be some higher risk associated with that. And you know, cryptocurrency in and of itself is not bad. It's not a bad thing. I mean, you can do some cool things with cryptocurrency. I bet some of you in this room have made some money on cryptocurrency investments. You can do that. And that's part of the problem here. I was talking with a gentleman before. It's like conspiracy theories. There's an element of truth and an element of good in a conspiracy theory. That's what makes it so dangerous. And same with crypto. A lot of people have made a lot of money off of crypto, and we're seeing it more widely accepted. We're seeing governments starting to use it for different ways. It certainly does present some additional problems, though, around transparency and influence and, you know, unknown outcomes. Yes, sir.
I think you mentioned several times that, oh my gosh, I don't think I need a microphone.
I think it's just for the recording.
Okay. You mentioned several times that the center of all of this activity is in Thailand, Southeast Asia region. How do they recruit English speakers that are articulate and persuasive?
Well, I think there might be a sliding scale on what we would consider to be solid English speaking skills, and maybe they're not as judging them as harshly, but I'll tell you one thing that's really impacting that is AI. With all of the AI and deep fake apps, that is, having good English skills is really not that important anymore, because the voice changing apps, even face changing apps, that's going to be a whole new frontier of trouble, because like I mentioned, a lot of times they're not showing their faces. When they would do a video call, you know, they would not be able to use their camera. But now with there's very convincing technology solutions to that, so that all of a sudden you can have my face and I can have your face, and not just for a picture, but for a live video chat. They've made it to where now the mouth movements will keep up. I'm not even making it up. I know you're thinking I'm crazy, but it's true. And in many of these Telegram channels where they're selling the library of images that I showed, a lot of those Telegram channels will say, hey, the best app for face swapping technology is now this, or here's the best app for voice changing, or here's the best app to write a script that sounds like it comes from somebody from the UK. There's all sorts of tools that are AI centric that are solving a lot of these problems for scammers. And again, they'll do good things too. It's not like the apps are all bad. There's some good things that can be accomplished by it. And certainly, you know, technology advancements for our country are always a wonderful thing, but in the wrong hands, they can be used for evil. Yes.
Thank you so much. And actually, as a quick follow-up, I've also read about that the people posing with fake identities, two factors influence that. One, a lot of the people being targeted aren't, you know, they haven't been, my choice of words here, blessed or gotten as high level in education, so they're very used to talking in, you know, a less, I don't want to say lower vernacular in English, but, you know, a lot of broken language and slang, and they wouldn't pick up on it as easily. Second, the big thing is a lot of these people their fake identities will be as Western European, so they can say, oh, sorry, English isn't my first language. I know a friend who got scammed because she was chatting with a very, you know, handsome man from Belgium.
Right.
Right. And he was in this, you know, tux and just, you know, looked like a movie star.
Right.
Anyway, my question is about Connor Clark. I'm a grad student at the University of Maryland, and I work at Penn State.
Okay. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for presenting. So my question is about the funding uses, because obviously, you know, you mentioned the main thing is that people want to make money for their own lifestyles.
Right.
I'm wondering about to what extent non-state actors, or maybe even governments, I'm thinking about North Korea, make money. Are they doing it to finance other illicit activities? And what are some good examples you've known where pig butcher and crypto scams are used for, I can just spitballing terrorism, other smuggling networks, you know, for drugs, or just things that make even more money,
Right.
or political goals? I don't know if anybody is funding Russia's war in Ukraine with this.
Right.
So that's what my question is.
I mean, those are all very logical conclusions that you could leap to. I don't know as much about the nation-state terrorist funding aspect in black and white, but the organized crime nature of the individuals running this is not their only game. Like, it's not just crypto. They're absolutely involved in drug trafficking, human trafficking, weapons trafficking, anything. It's all monetary. Whatever they can make dollars at, that's what they're interested in. And, you know, a lot of them do have very lavish lifestyles to support, and they don't mind flashing that around. One interesting thing is they've also kind of diversified the revenue sources in the crypto scam compounds, because the fact that they're, in essence, kidnapping the employees and trafficking them for labor, they a lot of times will, if they get close to the end of your useful time with them, they'll say, now we're going to try to get a ransom from your family, because your family is going to want to have you back. You're not doing great for us. You're not hitting your quotas. You're looking pretty rough, whatever. So they'll start the kidnapping extortion. So there's another revenue source there for them.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I don't mean to hog everything, but it just occurred to me, at night, I'm a late guy, I see these ads for law firms that will do research and recover your money.
Oh, this is a good point. Let's definitely talk about this.
And that was part of the reason I came here, just to make sure you're not one of them.
Well, I'm glad you are thinking that way, and I think that's very important. So many times we see people who have been the victims of a investment scam become re-victimized, and sometimes it's by the same criminals. The criminals have learned, okay, they're going to be desperate to get their money back. So now we have this front entity that's a crypto recovery service. And so they'll say, we can help you get your money back. Give us $30,000 up front. You're desperate. You've lost your whole 401k. Find $30,000. These people say they can get it back. And it can be the same actual group that's doing this. So my rule of thumb is doing an analysis and a trace on the blockchain of where your funds have gone. That's a perfectly legitimate exercise. If you want to spend money to do that, you can. There are a lot of ways to get that for free. But anyone who tells you that they can recover your funds up front and will charge you an upfront fee, I will stake my reputation on it that they are a scammer. I might be wrong occasionally, but I'm going to be right 99% of the time. If they are willing to say, we can get your money back and we'll do a contingency based on what we recover for you, I'd be much more willing to gamble on that. But if they're charging you a fee up front, run far away. Yes, sir.
Yes, excellent presentation.
Thank you.
I was wondering if you had any thoughts on ways that legal liability could be located somewhere in this chain of criminal activity. And, the Sam Bankman-Fried outfit, they were able to be taken down. Why can't the industry police itself, if there were, do you believe that if the legitimate crypto exchanges like crypto.com, Binance,
Right.
if they would levy severe penalties for permitting them to use the portal into this world, that they would find a way, a technical way to somehow block this?
I think you answered your own question right there. I think that has to be a piece of the solution is figuring out a way to, just like we see banking institutions responsible for complying with regulation or facing severe financial penalties. We've got to figure out how we can do that. And it's really not the compliant crypto exchanges that are the problem. It's all these international ones where they exist for the purpose of hiding criminal funds. And I think that's obviously going to take a lot of international cooperation between politicians and law enforcement around the world if we ever have a hope of getting these offshore exchanges to play by the rules. And we have to teach them that in the long run, it costs you more money to do business with a criminal than it does to not take that criminal business. And right now, they're making tons of money by banking criminals. So. All right, we got to wrap it up. Thank you all so much. You've been a great audience.